Okay. Wait, I even have a presentation. And I don't have my presenter. So, hi everybody, and welcome to the last talk of the last day of the conference. How did you like it, the conference? Yes. Okay, so now is the time. It's the last talk. So in the last talk, it is a custom in conferences that in order to honor the last speaker, people close their phones and their laptops and they listen to the talk, because really there's no other talks to get ready to. And let's face it, you won't get any lines of code done at 7 p.m. So let's focus on what I brought to you. And I think it's pretty light. It won't be really heavy in terms of technical details. So let's continue. Let's continue with the intro of our talk. And we have some people over here as well. Hi. Okay, so first of all, about me. That's me. My name is Ben. I come from Israel, so it was quite a long way to go to get here. And it's not my first time in Spain, and I liked all the times I was in Spain. So when I was contacted about coming here, it was pretty obvious that it's a good idea to come here to meet you people. And I have 2 children and 2 little hackers. And my history, my professional history is in 2 industries or in 2 ways. One of them is development, from a developer to a lead developer to CTO, VP R&D of a cybersecurity startup. And the other is information security, from a penetration tester to head of offensive security. So that's the 2 things I like to do, to build and to destroy. So currently I work at Imperva in Capsula. I manage the security research, which is a lot of fun. What we do is we deal with DDoS attack mitigation, with web application protection, web client classification and fingerprinting, finding bots that are used for different evil stuff, and taking care of them. And that's also my Twitter and my LinkedIn, in case you want to add me. Feel free. Disclaimer, I'm talking and I'm not always doing the corporate talk as well as I should. So if I'm saying anything, if I curse, God forbid, or if I say something, it's not the corporate speaking, it's me. And let's start with a small introduction to denial of service attacks. I guess many of you, if not all of you, know the term, but let's still bridge the gaps and get to a basic understanding of what denial of service attacks are. So basically, denial of service attacks are attacks that are aimed to deny service. That's the best explanation for this hour. But basically, it's any attack against a service that makes sure it runs out. It can be flooding the network. It can be something in the application layer. And we'll get more to that resolution. There are 2 terms used, and now English is not my native language. I always get this wrong, interchangeably. That's DOS and DDoS attacks. Let's call the big duck Mollard DOS and the small horses DDoS. So basically, the terms, again, are used interchangeably. The extra D goes for distributed denial of service attacks, and most attacks nowadays are distributed. That is because, first of all, you can inflict more damage by having more machines that are attacking. You can separate yourself from your victim and separate yourself from the police by doing the attack in a distributed way and not from your machine. And leverage more power as you amplify your attacks using more bandwidth of either the bots or the vulnerable devices that you are using. I would like to comment that not all denial of service attacks are DDoS, of course. Some application layer vulnerabilities can be exploited even from a single machine. I think the latest example would be a vulnerability called Black Nurse against ICMP in, let's say, legacy routing devices. And now let's make a distinction between two types of DDoS attacks. The first is volumetric attacks. In a volumetric attack, you would like to send as much traffic as possible to the attacked organization or network or whatever it is that you're attacking. And you're either sending a lot of traffic, and when you're sending a lot of traffic, it's usually done with amplification, which we will go through soon. Or you're trying to send a lot of packets per second. Now, sending more packets goes against the edge routers and the edge firewalls, and the bandwidth goes against the bandwidth well. So this is some photos from our systems. This is a 300 gigabit attack. This is how a high bandwidth attack looks like. And this is a high packets per second attack. This is how the high packets per second attack looks like. Now, attacks can also be in application layer. The borderline between volumetric and application layer would be volumetric application layer attacks. For example, if I send a lot of requests per second to a web server, that would be both volumetric and both application layer, right? But application layer attack can even be logical. For example, if I have a bank and that bank has a link to reset the password of an account, and it just resets that password until you set a new password, and you can enumerate the logins in the system, then by enumerating all of the logins in the system and resetting them, you're also denying service from the application. Of course, there are many types of layer 7 attacks. And DDoS attacks, again, it's a family of attacks. Anything that you do and that takes a system down or denies access to it is a DDoS attack. So this is how a denial of service layer 7 looks like. You see, this is the volumetric application layer DDoS attack. You can see hundreds of thousands of requests per second. Again, it can even be more than that, of course. And you see in the bottom, you almost can't see the line of legitimate traffic. Of course, what the attacker is sending is without proportions to what legitimate traffic is in most cases. So let's go through some more things to get ourselves comfortable about DDoS attacks. First of all, these are some, all security research groups in companies makes quarterly reports, and so do we. So this is from our latest DDoS report, where we gather information and trends about the attacks. So more and more attacks. I think that in 2 quarters before, it was something like 30%, so it's growing, are multi-vector. So meaning that in the same time, or at the same time, the attacker is sending, for example, WordPress pingback attack and SYN flood attack. So they're using multi-vectors at once, of course, in order to bypass mitigation solutions and try to accomplish what they're trying to do, which is to get the system down. Also interesting to note is that in a lot of cases, almost half the cases, sites that are attacked again within the same quarter. So attackers are persistent. We won't go into that today, but we won't go into that tomorrow as well, because the conference will be over. But one of the reasons is that it's ridiculously cheap to carry out DDoS attacks. So that is one of the reasons. And again, this is some more statistics, but we'll get through the statistics in a short while. Most attacks are a hit and run, what we call a hit and run. They're under 30 minutes, but of course there are much longer attacks. And this is the last data we will look at. Don't worry. we don't like to look at a lot of data. So this is just the breakdown from the latest report we created of the protocols used for attacks. Now, those of you who are still alive in this hour will notice that this sums up to more than 100%, right? And yet no one stopped me and said, you're showing us false information. Well, this is not false information. This is because, like I explained, most attacks are multi-vector. So there you go. That's the explanation. So most attacks are TCP-based, and then there are a lot of UDP attacks, mainly because of amplification vectors, which we will see soon, and I will also demonstrate such an attack. And then we have SYN floods and other types of attacks. Now, in order to get this, somewhat even more clear, I will try to break my neck by showing you a small visualization of DDoS attacks, which I created for you. But does it show? Yeah, it shows. No, this is this is a very tough angle to do this. So let's just pretend that it's full screen, so I don't have to maximize it. So anyways, up there, this simulates an organization, a very simple organization, of course, but this simulates the organization. And in the upper row over there, you can see, wait, let me still pull that to the side so we can see that better. Okay. Okay. So wait. Okay. Okay. Eventually I did maximize it. Okay, so in the upper row you can see the edge router of the organization. Of course this is simulated, but you can see the CPU and the bandwidth and packets per second that are being handled by the edge router. The second row, you can see the edge firewall of the organization, again with the CPU and with the traffic, legitimate versus blocked, and also the outbound line. The next row is the web server or web servers with CPU, RAM, hard drive, and request per second, and amount of sessions, and the database server with the CPU, RAM, hard drive, network, and the amount of connections. And this is, of course, just the high level, and it just goes to demonstrate how different DDoS attacks, although they are both called DDoS attacks, they look totally different in the network controls. And in the right side, I also made a chat screen area so we can see some of the communications going from the organization. Now, let's do an attack. I don't see anything from this angle. And let's hope that. Okay, so what we see in this attack, this is an amplification attack, okay? A volumetric attack that sends packets, large packets, and usually the attack goes faster, but this is in order to demonstrate, we make it slightly slower. So what we see in the upper right corner, that is now hidden by that rectangle, we see that the bandwidth keeps going up, but I'm sorry, this is a SYN flood with small packets. We see that there are more and more packets per second that the edge router and firewall are having a hard time to deal with because they have to look at each of these packets and process them. And the bandwidth is not going up, not in a dramatic way, okay? Now, both the edge router and firewall are starting to work very hard, okay? And it's a matter of time until one of them gives up. It depends on the configuration and the models, but one of them will give up, okay? So, where's my arrow? Okay, there you are. Now, we might get complaints from the employees about problems in the network, even before we know that there is an attack. And now the firewall the router gave up and doesn't transfer any more traffic to the firewall, and then we have a denial of service attack. Look at the web server and the database server. Of course, they're showing no signs of panic. On the other end, they don't have a lot of traffic to deal with. So that's how this attack looks like. On the other hand, let's look at a layer 7 attack. I will have to look here because, okay, let's look at an attack that goes against the database, for example, a DB flood, and look how it looks different. We see that almost no change in the network because you don't need to change large amounts of packets or large amounts of data to the organization, and we may get some complaints from our support, but look at the web server and look at the database server. Of course, more and more memory and the CPU is used by the database server because more connections are being open, and until the database dies down. And basically, we're getting the same reaction of an organization that doesn't function, but what we are looking at, the indicators to that attack, even like to do that. I mean, I can understand. I'll start from the beginning. Good evening. Okay, so I can understand, for example, if I, as an attacker, get a SQL injection in an e-commerce website, and I get credit cards, and I can then buy stuff. I can understand why I'm doing that. I can understand if I'm an attacker and I have a remote code execution of a server and I'm taking over that server, I can understand why I'm doing that. But why would I run a denial of service attack? It's a real question. It's not a rhetoric question. So, come on. Reasons. Why? What? Competitors is a good... What? Yeah, like Black Friday is a good example, which is today. There's Black Friday. I offer Huami Redmi 4, and my competitor also offers it. I want people to buy from me because I'm stuck with 10,000 units, so I just pay someone to denial of service their website. What other reasons are there, except for Black Friday? Blackmail. Okay, extortion is another good example. What other reasons are there? There are. Trust me. Yes. What? Yes.
Utah, there's a problem where the kids will buy DDoS. Sorry.
Where?
So it's known in Utah that some of the children don't want to go to school, so they don't want to take tests. They'll buy DDoS against their school.
Okay.
And then they can't do anything. No computers work. They can't take the tests.
In order not to go to school. That's
Yeah.
a good example as well. Okay. Any other? Yeah? Hi?
Having fun with friends to show them you are like a hacker when you are
To,
15 and you can do that.
to demonstrate that you are the alpha male. Okay.
For
Other reasons?
for political questions, political protest.
Political issues. Yeah, I don't like a country, so I DDoS them. Okay. Any more? Yes? Video games, rage DDoS in video games. Yeah, I lost to someone, so I will DDoS them, or even more logically, I bet against someone that I will win them, then I just drop them from their server, and then I actually win. Okay, any more? Okay, so let's see what I wrote and see if we got what we got to expand about. Rivalry, so we said competitive businesses. We're seeing that mostly within, more, let's say, gray areas. I don't see a national bank ordering a DDoS attack against another national bank, but let's say in areas like some of the shopping areas, some of the gambling areas, it's more common. And the next is extortion, and I would like to tie extortion to rivalry, because we've seen over 2016, of course, when clients get DDoS extortion letters, and they get a lot of them, they also send a copy to us, so we know, because we're the DDoS mitigation solution, and we should know about it. And we got some waves of attacks against the same industry. Now, when attackers send these letters for the same industry, what they achieve is that when you pay the attacker, you both get your quiet time without a DDoS attack, and you know that your competition might get DDoSed, and you won't suffer from that attack, and you might gain from it. So the extortion letters are pretty straightforward, and as you would expect, they intimidate you, they send you links to other attacks that they have committed, and if they dropped X, how will your site withstand that attack? Of course, you don't know if they really attacked X, and then they say, pay us now, 15 Bitcoins mostly, but it can be anything between 2 Bitcoins and 30 Bitcoins, something like that, 50. And you will not be attacked, and if not, while you're being attacked, the price goes up. And a lot of times they even start with a small attack, like a 10-minute attack, in order to demonstrate that they're serious. But in most cases, they just send those emails. Of course, payment is always in Bitcoins, always anonymous. Hacktivists, we mentioned that as well. Well, basically, if you get something that people will go against, they might cooperate. They might even add themselves voluntarily to your botnet. And of course, we've seen that happening with some anonymous campaigns and other campaigns. There's also state-sponsored and cyber terrorism. Nowadays, it's easy to get mixed up because some of the some of the terrorist organizations have the wealth of states. So basically, if let's say that Israel attacks Iran and sends warplanes to bomb Iran, that will start a war. But if someone starts a cyber attack, it will not start a war. So it's very convenient for countries to do cyber damage, and DDoS is one of them. Russia allegedly disconnected Estonia from the internet a couple of years ago, and of course we will probably see that in the future as well. There's also revenge or personal vendetta, and also the smokescreen. Some people say that the Australian census was a smokescreen, meaning that you attack a DDoS attack. Everybody's focus is on getting our network back up, getting us connected and making money again. And either because they transfer the traffic to a DR, or because they're not focused at it, a breach occurs at the same time. And the last but not least, just because you can, it's very funny to drop a website, of course to some people, not for me. So let's see at what's new in this DDoS from the latest. So it would be funny not to mention the latest, right? So a couple of months ago, Brian Krebs, well-known reporter and researcher, published research about a DDoS for hire service where you pay money to get your opponent crashed by a DDoS attack called VDoS. Actually, the research was that it was operated by two guys from my country, and he published all their names and the amount of money that they made and such, and it made a lot of fuss, of course. And then after a few days, the Mirai source code was published on GitHub. Mirai is a piece of malware that intended to generate DDoS attack. It's sort of a worm because the bots infect other machines as well. And then Brian Krebs' website was also attacked by that Mirai. There were also other attacks by that Mirai botnet, and the Mirai botnet was a botnet mainly intended for IoT devices, Internet of Things devices, from DVR, CCTVs, NAS, whatever. And the common thing about all of these products is that they have a low level of security. Of course, not all of them, but there are many of these devices with low level of security. And Mirai actually uses just 61 default credentials in order to get control of machines, and apparently it got control of 100,000 of machines. So then also Liberia was attacked and disconnected from the internet for a couple of hours. So yes, so Mirai. Let's talk a little bit about Mirai. I'm glad that I did the last slide because I won't break my neck again. So Mirai, again, the code that was released was a CNC server that's written in Go language, so you'll like it, and the bot itself that's written in C. And some interesting things from it. I wanted to show you straight from the code, but since I will break my neck, I will just show you from the slide. So some interesting things. First of all, there is all the attacks it has. It has different, mainly network level attacks. Some of them are nice, like GRE tunnels, creating fake GRE packets. And GRE is an encapsulation protocol, and the idea is that the router that gets the GRE packet needs to decapsulate it, and it takes more resources. And some application layer attacks, some of them are done especially to bypass some mitigation solutions. And so all the attacks are in there. It's in GitHub. You can, of course, read the source code. And next, something nice that they did. So this is, for example, some bypassing that they did to bypass, for example, Cloudflare. And this is something else nice that they do is they implement in the source code, which is they do some memory scraping when they infect the device, and also every few minutes they do memory scraping and they look for other bots to get rid of them. So they make sure that their bot is in control of that machine and has its power just for itself. Now, what's interesting, like I said about the research about DDoS for hire, and then Mirai, now something that connects the dots, not just that Brian Krebs' attack was partly done by the Mirai, is that also in the CNC, you can see references to payment and to accounts, which sort of leads to that it was part of a DDoS for hire service. So you have a cooldown period, for example. So once you get the attack, you can't order another attack, and it checks if your user is still valid and such. So the user has a last paid field, indicating that they probably have some sort of a subscription. So it sort of fits. And then there was the Dyn attack, of course, done by Mirai, or mostly by Mirai, according to Dyn. What they released, the information that they released is that it was done by over 100,000 devices, infected devices. and of course because a lot of services were large services were using Dyn as their authoritative DNS server. They just went down, or partly went down in large parts of the world. And we looked at the information, and from Alexa Top 1K, 10% of the websites use Dyn. So that can explain the large effects of the Dyn attack. Looking at we also saw some Mirai attacks on our network. So this is quite blurry, but you can see that in our website. But we saw the global attacks, and that's non-spoofed IPs. And the global attacks almost anywhere. I wish I would be a Mirai bot to travel all around the world. But not far from it. But still, it has infections everywhere, and even in very remote locations. And again, the reason is that it is infecting IoT devices, cheap IoT devices, with minimal security. So now, the last. So that's about Mirai. Any questions so far? Come on, don't be shy. Any questions so far? Oh, from that side. No, you can ask from there.
What do you think about Mirai whitelisting General Electric's Herzberg IP address?
Okay, I think about, well, I would say that whitelisting that large array would probably be because it was a large class A that is dead. It wasn't not to get caught or something, or because GE paid them not to scan their IP services. I think it was just in terms of efficiency. When they were running it, they saw that they never find anything because it's a large network and it has no exposed telnet or SSH services. And I would personally think that. Of course, it's just my personal feeling. If you ask me, and another personal feeling I have is that the code was released, right? But I believe that some parts of it were emitted. Some parts of it, I think that some of the tricks were still kept close to the attacker, and the reason is probably they could lead to the attacker. Maybe it's something more distinct than using default credentials. Maybe it was published, for example, in Brian Krebs, in some of the chat logs that he published with the VDOS operators. They said that someone said the attack is not working against that site. So they said, oh, it's an Israeli site, and we block Israeli sites. So they may have removed that from the code, because that would be, for example, if that is the case, that can be have implications against them. So,
What do you think about Oracle guys?
About?
The Oracle guys doing the attack to buy cheaper. Din.
To
Oracle buys Din.
what do you mean?
Oracle buys
Yeah.
Din.
Yeah.
The last week.
Oh, Oracle. Maybe Oracle did that. Oh, okay. That's a nice conspiracy theory. Although you never know, of course. Maybe because he was saying because Oracle recently bought Din, maybe it was done to lower the price. If it was done, then kudos to Oracle. Really, I mean, it would be one of the most let's say, creative ways of making money from a DDoS attack. Maybe the other one would be to buy short of a company and then DDoS them. So let's add that to the slides. Any more questions before we proceed? No? One question? Okay, no. Okay, so let's do a small simulation of a DDoS attack. And in order to do the simulation, what we will do, the simulation will be of a reflective amplification attack. And the reason I want to show a reflective amplification attack is because it could be nice also to show the tools used, because it might be useful for other things as well. Not just for attacks, but for research purposes and such. So first, let's do a real quick recap of the 7 layers model. Okay. Now let's focus on layers 3, 4, and 7. Who can say what layer 3? Layer 3. Okay, so layer 3 IP. Basically, it's saying who's the source, who's the destination, and then BGP routes the traffic to the destination, from the source to the destination. On top of layer 3, there's layer 4. Okay, what's called the transport layer, and who can share a name of a transport layer protocol? TCP is a transport layer protocol, indeed. Other transport layer protocols? UDP is also a transport layer protocol. Okay, that's good. Who here likes TCP? No one? Oh, I have 2 fans. Who here likes UDP? The same people likes both protocols, and other people don't like any protocol. No, I'm just checking who's still with us and who's not. So anyway, the difference between TCP and UDP, there are some differences, of course, but let's cut it to the chase. The main difference in our case between TCP and UDP is the 3-way handshake. In TCP, in order to create a connection, you send a SYN, then I wanted to say your victim. Your destination, your destination sends you a SYN ACK, and then an ACK for every packet it sends. So, and with UDP it's not like that. With UDP it's just sending the information without the 3-way handshake. So basically, in the transport layer you don't know that your source is indeed your source. IPs can be spoofed. Layer 7, who can tell me an example of a layer 7 protocol? HTTP, okay. And a layer 7 protocol that's commonly used over UDP? DNS, okay. DNS. So DNS can be transported over TCP, but in real life it's mostly transported over UDP. So that's as to the OSI model. We'll use some tools, and again, it's going to be very light, don't worry. So we're going to use Wireshark. I don't want to explain what's Wireshark, so but Wireshark, you all know Wireshark. We won't be using HPing3, but it's just here for longer presentation. And we will use Scapy. Scapy is a Python library. I think that it's an extremely useful library. In Scapy, you can do various network stuff. Basically, what we will use it for today is to craft packets, and you can change all attributes in the data that you send, even things that shouldn't be sent like you're creating them. And that's why it's very comfortable to use it. You can use it as a standalone. You can use Scapy as a standalone, and you can use it, just import it to your Python script and run it. So let's see some volumetric attacks. There's SYN flood. With SYN flood, you're sending SYN packets with a spoofed IP address saying, hi, 2.2.2.2, I'm 1.1.1.1, and I'm not really 1.1.1.1. So I'm sending all of these spoofed IP packages. You're sending the SYN ACK to other addresses, not to my address, and that's a SYN flood. So that's a SYN flood. ACK flood. I can either send just ACK packets and just send information. So you would have to process that information. And the reason why a lot of times there are games with TCP attacks sending with different flags is to confuse mitigation solutions. So you can send ACKs, and you can send reflected ACK flood or SYN ACK flood by sending lots of machines SYNs and getting them to send SYN ACK to our victim. One of the reasons of doing that is so that the syntax that they will send are not spoofed, and in some cases we look at where the traffic came from in terms of what ISP sent me the traffic to check that it's not spoofed, and in that case it won't be spoofed. But let's not get into that. Let's get into DNS amplification as an example. So basically, DNS amplification is a reflective amplification attack where I am sending a DNS server that's returning results. I am sending him a query. The query asks, give me all the information. Of course, it can be not that in order not to get blocked. It can be just give me all the name server records, etc. But give me all the information you have about domain.com. And then I'm sending just a small packet, just a question. Give me all the information you have. And I'm saying that my IP source is my victim's IP source. And I'm sending that to lots of DNS servers, and they all send the replies to my victim, who now gets all the DNS responses he didn't want, which can amount to a lot of traffic. Of course, with the DNS packets, with the DNS requests, I can also use other amplification protocols in order to increase the traffic. So let's try to do that. Now, I must say that before going on stage, my Linux died. I had a virtual Linux that died. I'm not saying this won't work because I downloaded this again, but just saying. Okay, so we have 3 machines for this. Let's just go over here. And just so I can see what's happening. Okay. Now this should work, hopefully. Okay, so I have 3 machines, and the first one is the victim. The victim is a Windows machine, non-pun intended, but the victim is Windows. And we have our DNS server, which is this server. Okay, and we have our attacker, which is a brand new Kali installation that I just downloaded, and let's hope that it works. Okay, so we have, this is our DNS server, okay? It's a simple DNS server that's gone. Wait, okay. This is our DNS server, okay? It's a simple DNS server, and it's running a bind. Bind is a simple DNS server. And in the DNS server, we have a zone configured, just a simple zone, okay? Sample zone has name servers, it has different hosts, and it has some mail servers. You know how name servers are. Okay, so this is the name server of, this is the DNS server. Let's take it here. No, this is, okay. Now this is the Windows machine. Let's see what the IP address is. Okay, so the IP address is 10.0.2.15, okay? So just so we know what to attack. And now let's go to the escapee, and that's around somewhere. Just 1 second. Okay, it went here. Okay, so now we have our Linux machine, and we're running escapee. It gives a bunch of errors because, like I said, I downloaded it in the last moment. Let's hope it doesn't disconnect now, so I see what I'm doing. Okay, cool. So basically, it says welcome to Scapy, and now we define the 3 layers that we are going to use. First of all, DNSQR, let's call it DNSQR, is a new object of a DNSQR. DNSQR is a DNS query, okay? Now, DNS is the DNS layer, the layer 7. UDP is the UDP. And IP, you guessed it, is the IP. Okay, now everything we want to set, we can look at the display, and we can look at display, so we know what we can set. So let's start with the DNS query, okay? We do a dot display, and we see everything. It has low contrast, so let's just say that it has a Q type. Again, this is a new operating system, so I didn't set the colors. But it has a Q type, so we'll set it to any for this example. So I'm asking all the results for that domain, and Q name is coopbank.com. Okay, so whoops, that's for the DNSQR. Okay, now with the DNS, we also set some things, and we'll set. First of all, we'll set RD, which is recursion desired. In this example, it doesn't really matter because we're just asking that DNS server that has the record. But when we are doing a real attack, we would like the DNS server, if it doesn't have the information about the domain we want to send the details, we want it to contact to do the DNS recursion in order to get the information. We're setting the QD count, which is the query desired count, to 1 as well, because we have one query, and the QD is the DNS QR, the query that we made. Okay, so far so good. We have a DNS request with a DNS query inside. Now, with the UDP, we don't need to change anything, okay? Because the default in Scapy is port 53, which is DNS. The only thing that we need to change is the IP destination, because we need to tell it where to go, which is to the DNS server. Let's see what the DNS server's IP is. Okay. Okay, so this is 10.0.2.4, okay? So we're sending the information to the DNS server. So it's 10.0.2.4, okay? Now, in order to send the request, we do SR1 and IP slash, I don't know why they chose this syntax instead of commas, but IP/UDP/DNS that construct the DNS over the UDP over the IP, and the DNS has the query inside, right? And then when we send it, of course the colors looks terrible, but we're getting all the information in it, like the name servers, we're getting all the information. Now, in order to see if it's amplified, right? Let's check the length of this. This is 58 bytes. Okay, the request is 58 bytes. And the response is 388. 388, okay, so it has somewhat of an amplification factor. Of course, you can, when you're attacking, you can use bigger domains and such. So basically, in order, but the only bad thing about the attack that we did is that we're getting the replies to ourselves, meaning that if we're DDoSing anyone, it would be ourselves. We're not reflecting, we're just amplifying. So now let's just send it to our victim. So we're setting the source of the IP to 10.0.2. I think it was 15, but I'm not sure. Let's just verify. Okay, so it is 10.0.2.15, okay? And in here, let's open Wireshark. And let's see if we're getting anything from that DNS server, which shouldn't send us anything because we're not sending anything to that DNS server. So now let's use send instead of SR1, which is asynchronous. It just sends. It doesn't wait for the packet, so we won't get a timeout, and just sending and sending and sending. And we're seeing that in the Wireshark. Okay, we're seeing two effects here, by the way. We're seeing that we're getting the UDP, the DNS request, and we also see that we're also sending an ICMP about the port not being available, so we can perhaps channel that into another attack because the ICMP is as large as the DNS in that case. So, but this is just basically this just goes to show why it's nice to demonstrate with these things, not just read about attacks, but also to set up the environment and look at it, because all of a sudden you see, okay, what happens if I play with the checksum? What happens if I play with this or with that? I would recommend using Scapy also as a fuzzing tool because it's very convenient. You import it to Python, then you can run all sorts of crazy tests on your environment. It can be a lot of fun. So this is the amplification attack example. Of course, when you do it in real life, you don't do it with one server. This just goes to show the concept. Okay. So some conclusions, and I hope I will have also some random thoughts. So some conclusions. First of all, we're seeing attacks that are more into high packets per second in the last year or so. This is partly because in order to bypass different mitigation solutions that offers you high bandwidth, but then once it gets to the router, if you pass a lot of packets, it can create a downtime. Of course, with Mirai, one of the interesting things that we saw. A lot of attacks that were not spoofed, attacks in which you could manipulate the packets and send, for example, just vanilla UDP packets without any data or things like that, instead of simple, dumb amplification attacks. Other trends we see is more and more layer 7 attacks that are more sophisticated in terms of, for example, JavaScript support and cookie support, things that are done in order to make it harder to distinguish between real attacks and real traffic and real attacks. Other trends we see is attacks from mobile botnets, from infected mobile devices, and I'm still surprised and relieved that mobile attacks are not as large as they could have been. But a mobile device, basically, first of all, a lot of people just install applications without thinking of what those applications are doing. And second of all, there are a lot of them. It's something that's growing exponentially around the world, and it has high bandwidth in most places. So it's a great weapon. It also has high capabilities in terms of opening browsers and such in order to make it harder to detect those types of attacks. So that's something else that we're seeing. And in 2020, there are estimated to be, again, depending who you're asking, but around 30 billion, at least, IoT and mobile devices, which is about five per person. So that might be tragic if we don't get more secure in the 4 years we have remaining until then. And with that, I think that I will conclude. So thank you very much. Muchas gracias. I think it's pregunta, questions. How do you say pregunta? Let's see. But in English.
What about, the two examples you mentioned are against the bandwidth of the victim. What about attacks to another part of the servers? For example, making the process consume a lot of RAM or spawning a lot of sub-processes. Are not significant these kinds of attack, or are they already solved?
Well, it depends. Solved is a wide and broad term when we're discussing such a wide family of attacks. But the first demo that the second demo that I showed in the dashboard was attack against the database. Let's say that you have a price comparison website, okay? And you have millions of products in your website, okay? Now, most people, when they go to your website, they look for the lowest prices or the highest rated products. If I'm an attacker, I would, of course, do the opposite. I would look for the less indexed and less cached resources and try to attack those. By thus creating a lot of stress on your web application, your application server, and your database server. So I would go against what your DBA is doing or your developers are doing in order to optimize. And we see, of course, those layer 7 attacks that try to randomize things in order not to be cached and such. Of course, it's not something that went away, of course.
And attacks to knock down the process in some way? I mean, it's just, are they attack only overwhelming in some way the service, or are there attacks to make the process die in some way?
Well, again, there are DNS attacks again, all parts of the chain of getting the things that you wanted. So there are also attacks like this. Some of them, for example, uses specific vulnerabilities which can kill a service, and then you don't need millions or 100,000 or thousands of machines attacking if you have a vulnerability that can easily kill something. And that's something that happens a lot. And you can search for CVEs of DDoS, and you'll find that it has quite a lot. And others are using application-specific, well, I wouldn't call it as vulnerabilities, but let's say features in order to create attacks. And I think that the best example I can give is WordPress pingback attacks, which uses a feature by WordPress in order to send attacks to other web servers, because you can get information sent to a different IP from a WordPress site. So and then who's your attacker, right? Because it's reflected and it's still a full TCP connection was done. So that's another example. No secrets. No. Okay, more questions? Yes.
Hi. Well, I have a question. It's more not about how to mitigate attacks. Just you mentioned about all the IoT devices that we will have in 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
How we can control this kind of cheap devices that sometimes come from China that don't have security, and they have a lot of security breaches to let the botnets access to it and use it as a hotspot to also infect other devices. So which will be the future for try to securize these devices from outside the companies?
Okay, so I will answer that in a few ways, if it's okay. First of all, I would like to mention that you mentioned cheap stuff coming from China, but also the expensive stuff is also coming from China. Everything is coming from China. So let's see. So first of all, in the lowest level, I think that first of all, awareness heals, okay? Because now that these things are in the news, both manufacturers, even those who had little awareness, now maybe some of them woke up and they say, okay, let's spend $10,000 on penetration testing to make sure that we have at least basic protection. So that's one thing. Another thing is that security researchers keeps researching and keeps finding flaws and trying to submit those flaws. In cases of IoT devices, I know of some cases where the replies were funny and it was not like if you're giving a bug to Google and getting $10,000, you're just getting an email of I'm sorry sir, but if you want units, how many units exactly do you want? But they're not serious. But again, with awareness it will come, and awareness is also awareness of the users, because I think that if my mother asked me if about these things, and if she gained awareness finally, then I'm sure that other naive users also became suddenly aware that someone can use their CCTV or DVR or babysitter camera in order to not just carry out DDoS attack, but also look at those cameras, and people will start saying, what have I connected to the internet, and what can it do, and what can it do when it's connected to the internet? And maybe there will be more services that will help people. We issued a service, for example, to check if your home network has Mirai, is vulnerable to Mirai. But maybe there will be like services like pay me $20 and I'll just run a quick penetration testing on your home environment to make sure that you're safer. So that's another thing. And the last thing is the people who really matters, the regulators. If let's say I want to start a business and import CCTV devices, okay, they will pass it through standard tests like CE and such to make sure that when I plug it in, it won't knock down the electricity, right? But they wouldn't care if it has admin1234 as a login and password. Now, maybe, just maybe, because this is a real risk and the real risk was demonstrated, then the regulators will also wake up and say, okay, when you want to import, please show us that it went through at least basic certification to show that this device is secure. Otherwise, it's not going into the United States or Europe or whatever country. And that may not eliminate this danger, but it can reduce it to a tolerable level. Okay? I hope that answered.
Yeah, thank you.
A small comment. There's a clause, at least in Spanish ISPs, that they can close your connection at home if they detect any kind of activity of this kind. So that would be another alternative.
That would be another alternative. I don't know if there.
It's a nuclear solution, but if people is aware that they can shut your internet connections because you buy one of these unsecure things.
So yes, of course, it would be hard for them to, let's say, shut down all types of DDoS attacks, because some of them are just HTTPS traffic that's being sent, and you never know if it's an attack or using a service. But if they lower the danger in some ways, and that's also maybe part of the solution as well.
So that's it.
No,
Thank you very much, Mr. Herzberg. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias.
So yes, we reached the end of our Big Small Congress. This was the first edition. If the first edition was like this, you just can imagine how the next editions will be. Thank you very much to all the speakers who came from all around the world. We had, I guess, more than 7 countries in this edition. Also some national speakers. They've done a really good job. They've done or not? Yes. So give them an applause, please. Y dicho esto, me gustaría que subieran al escenario todos los voluntarios que han hecho esto posible. Así que chicos, adelante. Y si tenemos... And also the photographer, please. Y a partir de aquí, pues empezar un poco con la ceremonia de clausura de esto. Va a ser un poco, no improvisada, pero va a ser rapidilla. Entonces, tenemos aquí representación de la Escuela Politécnica. Adelante. Creo que tiene unas palabras para nosotros. Así que...
So Spanglish, yeah, we try get a Spanglish. We can try a new one. So thank you very much to you for your presence. I'm sure you all know a lot about this subject. I've learned a lot to be here, and we really feel that you have done a very great job. And what I have in my backpack when I finished to hear some of your conference are 5 or 3 or 6 big ideas. So this is a real social and technical global challenge. I think you are facing something that we as a community will have to solve in a very short time. And the ethical values of your community will be a key point to go a step further and to improve everything. I see also that this is a big business and very challenging business. So the competing in the future will have a lot to do with security. Companies and people and countries that are more secure will be more competitive than others. So I think you are in the real hot spot about this. And finally, I realized that the level of awareness is still very low. Very low from the users especially, and I suppose also for small and medium companies that maybe cannot reach such a great knowledge that you have now with you. So, but above all, what I can realize is the passion. You're really very passionate people. And the next time that someone told me that IT people are very shy, the communication skills are not so good, I would say, no way. When they really are passionate about what they do, they really communicate fantastically. So congratulations. This is an open for you. Please, I hope that we will again collaborate in the future and have a nice weekend. Congratulations again.
Thank you very much also to the university. We are expecting a bigger and stronger collaboration in the future. Y aprovechamos para anunciar a todos los asistentes que la siguiente fecha para la siguiente edición del Congreso ya está en la cocina, por así decirlo. Nos vamos a encontrar a partir de mediados de junio, como muy tarde, la primera semana, la segunda semana de julio. O sea que estar al loro por esas fechas. Vais a estar todos informados, seguir la web, vais a poder disfrutar de las conferencias, todas las charlas están grabadas en vídeo. Vamos a subir las presentaciones y hacer una memoria científica del Congreso. Así que vais a estar al dato de todo lo que ha pasado aquí, vais a estar también enterados de la siguiente edición muy pronto. Finales de junio, principios de julio. Y también desde aquí dar especial mención y las gracias a todos los voluntarios, de verdad, que habéis hecho esto posible. You see me speaking in here, presenting this. You saw me in a fancy suite the first day, a lot of photos, we eat together, but this was possible thanks to these people who are behind this and next to this. So from the IT group, logistics, business relationships, and finding the sponsors, taking cool pictures and making the PowerPoint, everything. Thank you very much, guys. A big applause for you. Y a lo largo de estos días hemos anunciado que habría un sorteo de un lote de cerveza. ¿Puede ser? No era ninguna técnica de ingeniería social para que os quedarais aquí. Es real. Así que me parece que va a ser Xavi el que va a estar tomando los nombres de los que estáis aquí. Y si esperáis en el hall vamos a decir el número ganador.
Bueno, solo pediros que antes de salir me deis vuestros nombres y luego en el hall pues os damos el resultado, ¿vale? Okay. So just I want to say that before you go, let me know your name and then on the hall we are going to say who is the winner of this pack of beer.
It will be fair play. It will be fair play. It's not fair. And for the speakers, you can get a beer sample just to take you home and have a good memory of this event. And that's it for now.